I walked into that jewelry store with my donkey and was almost thrown out immediately. They laughed at the smell, the dust, my clothes. But when I started pointing to the most expensive jewelry in the display case, silence took over the store. Subscribe now to the channel and discover how a simple farmer left the jewelry store owner breathless with a purchase no one expected. The Hamptons dawned as it always did in the month of July. The blue sky reflecting on the crystal clear ocean, the elegant buzz of foreign tourists strolling through the cobblestone streets of Main Street, and merchants preparing their impeccable window displays. The Long Island resort town, famous for its glamour and wealthy clientele, followed its routine without incident. At Ocean Pearl's jewelry store, Claire Morrison, a woman in her early 60s, with perfectly styled grey hair in a bun and dressed in an impeccable black suit, supervised the strategic positioning of a new set of Colombian emerald necklaces. Anna, adjust the lighting a bit more to the right. That way the reflections are perfect, Claire instructed her main assistant, a 27-year-old brunette who had worked at the store for almost 5 years. I want everyone who passes by the window to feel they need these jewels. It was at that exact moment that an unusual sound for that tourist area interrupted the morning's tranquility. The noise of hooves hitting the cobblestones echoed down Main Street, followed by the characteristic creaking of a wooden cart. The smell of hay and wet earth invaded the nostrils of pedestrians, who stopped in surprise to observe that figure so out of place. Joe Thompson appeared like an apparition from another time, wearing faded denim pants, a long-sleeved plaid shirt. Despite the heat, a straw hat worn from use and leather boots covered with red dust from the countryside. Beside him, pulling a simple cart, was Lightning, his grey donkey with a weathered coat but lively, attentive eyes. The contrast between that rustic figure and the sophisticated boutiques couldn't have been more striking. "My God, what is that?" whispered Anna to Melissa, another saleswoman at the jewelry store, while both observed through the tempered glass door of the shop. "It looks like the countryside invaded the Hamptons." "Must be some country bumpkin who got lost," replied Melissa, with a disdainful chuckle. "Or maybe he's looking for the craft fair, which is on the other side of town." The exclusive clientele of Ocean Pearl's jewelry store began to discreetly move away when the cart approached the store entrance. A foreign couple took photos discreetly, as if it were a folkloric attraction. The man, however, seemed completely oblivious to the reactions he was causing. With determined steps, he tied his donkey to a decorative post and headed toward the jewelry store entrance. "No way," murmured Claire, making a firm gesture for Anna and Melissa to intercept the unexpected visitor. The two employees practically ran to block the revolving door before the man could enter. "Excuse me, sir," said Anna with a forced smile, "but animals are not allowed to enter this commercial area. You need to remove your transportation from in front of the store." Joe Thompson looked calmly at the young women with his brown eyes wrinkled by decades of sun exposure. A discreet smile formed on his chapped lips. "Good morning, ladies. I didn't come to sell anything. I came to buy," he replied with a heavy accent from rural Virginia. Melissa exchanged looks with Anna. "Even so, sir, this is a refined establishment. If you wish to enter, you'll have to leave the animal far from here. It's scaring away our clientele." By this time, several passers-by had already stopped to watch the unusual scene. Some were taking photos with their cell phones, others were whispering among themselves, predicting the embarrassing outcome of that situation. Claire, realizing that the small commotion was attracting even more attention to her store, in the wrong way, decided to intervene personally. "What's happening here?" she asked with the authority of someone who had spent 3 decades establishing one of the most prestigious businesses in the Hamptons. "This gentleman insists on entering the store, Mrs. Morrison," explained Melissa, "but refuses to remove the animal from the front." Claire examined the man from head to toe. His simple clothes, his calloused hands, his unpretentious posture. Everything indicated he didn't belong in that environment. With a controlled sigh, she adopted the polite but firm tone she used for delicate situations. "Sir, I understand that perhaps you're not familiar with the type of establishment we have here. This is a high-end jewelry store, and unfortunately, we cannot allow animals to remain near the entrance. If you wish to enter, I kindly ask that you tie your donkey, somewhere more distant. To everyone's surprise, Joe Thompson simply nodded calmly. "You're absolutely right, ma'am," he replied, adjusting his hat. "I'll tie Lightning right over there at that farther post. He's a well-behaved animal, won't cause any trouble." Without further delay, he led the animal to a more distant post, tied it carefully, and returned to the jewelry store entrance. Claire, with no more excuses to prevent him, reluctantly allowed his entry while exchanging meaningful looks with her employees. Silence took over the store when Joe Thompson entered. The few customers present discreetly observed that figure so out of context. The Italian marble floor reflected his dusty boots, and the strategically positioned mirrors multiplied his rustic image. Without showing any discomfort, he walked directly to the central display case, where rested the most valuable pieces in the collection. "Can I help you with something specific?" asked Melissa, with a tone that made clear her disbelief in any possibility of a sale. Joe Thompson pointed without hesitation to a magnificent necklace of blue sapphires set in white gold, an exclusive piece that had arrived from Italy the previous week. "I want to see that necklace there," he said simply. Melissa and Anna exchanged incredulous looks. "That sapphire necklace cost nothing less than $65,000. Claire approached, intervening discreetly. "Sir, perhaps you would like to see our more accessible pieces. We have beautiful silver sets with Brazilian semi-precious stones in the other display case," she suggested, gesturing toward a side showcase. Joe Thompson remained impassive, his gaze fixed on the sapphires. "No, ma'am. I really want to see that necklace there, and also those ruby earrings right next to it, and that pearl bracelet too." A murmur ran through the store. Claire hesitated, but her commercial experience spoke louder. If there was a chance, even a minimal one, she couldn't dismiss a customer. "Melissa, please show the gentleman the pieces he requested," she ordered, staying nearby to supervise. With white gloves, Melissa removed the necklace from the display case and placed it on a black velvet tray. The sapphires sparkled under the strategic lighting, casting blue reflections throughout the environment. Joe Thompson examined the piece with surprising attention, turning it between his calloused fingers with the delicacy of an experienced jeweler. "Good work," he murmured, analyzing the clasp. "Natural sapphires, aren't they? From Sri Lanka, I imagine." The surprise on Claire's face was impossible to disguise. "Exactly. How do you know that?" "You learn a few things in life," he replied simply. "Now please show me the earrings." When the three requested items were arranged on the counter, Joe Thompson examined them with an attention that seemed misplaced for someone with his appearance. The store's atmosphere had transformed. What had begun as a moment of embarrassment had evolved into tense curiosity. Who was this man? What was he doing there? "I'll take all three," he announced finally. Claire cleared her throat, trying to maintain professional composure. "Sir, just so you're aware, the total value of these pieces is $142,000. "I know that," he replied, while removing from his shirt's inner pocket a yellowed and wrinkled envelope. "I have the money here." The envelope contained a cashier's check from Bank of America, issued by a branch in Hartford, Connecticut, in the amount of $150,000. Everything seemed to be in order, but Claire, cautious, asked permission to verify the document's authenticity. After some calls and online confirmations, there was no doubt the check was legitimate. The entire store waited in almost reverential silence. When Claire finally nodded to her employees, indicating they could proceed with the sale, the environment was completely transformed. The initial prejudice had been replaced by genuine curiosity. "You have refined taste in jewelry," commented Claire, while Anna prepared the certificates of authenticity and the invoice. "May I ask who these pieces are for?" Joe Thompson, for the first time since entering the store, allowed himself a broader smile, revealing a gold tooth in the corner of his mouth. "They're for my Margaret, my companion for 35 years, he replied, with a gleam in his eyes that spoke more than any words could express. "I promised her that when everything was over, I would give her a gift that would make time stand still. Today, I'm keeping that promise." "When everything was over?" asked Anna, unable to contain her curiosity. My Margaret faced a breast tumor 2 years ago. Those were difficult months at the hospital in Hartford, but she won, and now we're celebrating. The revelation caused an immediate impact. What before was merely curiosity transformed into a wave of sympathy. The employee's expressions softened, and even a customer who was discreetly observing the scene approached to congratulate him on his wife's recovery. While the purchase was being finalized, Joe Thompson explained that he wasn't a simple farmer as his appearance might suggest. In fact, he was the founder and president of Green Valley Organic Cooperative, one of the largest organic coffee producers in upstate New York, with exports to Europe and Asia. His simplicity in dress and speech didn't reflect his commercial success. It was just the result of a lifetime dedicated to working in the fields. I never had time for luxury nor interest. I've been working since I was 8 years old. Started as a farmhand, then managed to buy a small piece of land. Today, the cooperative has more than 300 associated producers, but I continue living in the same simple house, raising my cattle, waking up with the roosters crow. It's my way of being. What no one in the store could predict was that among the curious onlookers who had photographed the scene earlier was Beth Summers, a local influencer with more than 200,000 followers who had captured the entire unfolding of that unusual story. While Joe Thompson signed the invoice for his purchase, Beth was already posting on her social networks the complete narrative, with photos of the donkey tied outside, the simple farmer, and the moment of purchasing the expensive jewelry. True, love isn't measured by what you have, but by what you're willing to do for those you love. Today I witnessed this in the Hamptons' True Love, No Prejudice real story, read the caption of her post, which in minutes began to go viral. When Joe Thompson finally left Ocean Pearl's jewelry store, carrying 3 small boxes carefully wrapped in gold laminated paper and blue ribbons, he had no idea of the buzz his visit was already causing on social networks. Nor did he imagine that upon returning to his cart, he would be approached by Beth, who would ask for a brief interview. "Would you mind telling us a bit more about your story? About the promise you made to your wife?" she asked, her cell phone already in recording mode. Faced with the unexpected situation, Joe Thompson responded with the same simplicity with which he conducted his entire life. "When you truly love, miss, a promise is a sacred debt. My Margaret fought to stay here in this world with me, so the least I can do is show her that every day beside her is a rare jewel." The interview, edited and published less than an hour later, reached more than 100,000 views before sunset. The hashtag Promise Kept began to trend nationally. Comments came from all corners of the country, many sharing their own stories of overcoming challenges. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the repercussion he was causing, Joe Thompson guided his cart through the streets of the Hamptons, heading toward the simple inn where he had left Margaret resting after the long journey from their farm. The next morning, Ocean Pearl's jewelry store opened its doors to unusual activity. Curious onlookers passed in front of the window, pointing and commenting about the store from the viral video. Claire arrived earlier than usual and found 2 local TV crews waiting for an interview. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from radio stations and newspapers asking for statements. "I never imagined all this would happen," she commented to Anna while nervously adjusting her bun. "It seems we underestimated the power of social media." "Mrs. Morrison, have you seen the comments? People are moved by the story. Some even criticize how we initially treated Joe," observed Anna, showing her cell phone screen. Claire sighed, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and recognition. She knew she had judged that man precipitately based only on his appearance. As someone who had suffered prejudice when opening her own business decades ago, when few women commanded prestigious companies, she should have been more understanding. "You're right, Anna. I think we all learned a lesson yesterday," she admitted, observing the growing movement on the street. Meanwhile, at Seashell Inn, a few miles away, Joe Thompson and Margaret were preparing to have breakfast. Completely unaware of the commotion they had caused, they planned a quiet walk on the beach before returning to the farm. "Joe, you didn't need to spend so much money on me," said Margaret, a 60-year-old woman with shoulder-length grey hair and expressive green eyes that contrasted with her tan skin. "We've never been about luxuries." He held his wife's hand tenderly. "Margaret, when you were in that hospital bed, I made a promise to God and to myself. I said that if you got well, I would give you something as precious as your life is to me, and I don't regret it one bit." Margaret's eyes welled up. Although she had been married to that man for more than 3 decades, he still managed to surprise her with unexpected gestures. The night before, when he delivered the 3 boxes, she could hardly believe what she saw. Never in her simple life in the countryside had she imagined that one day she would wear such sophisticated jewelry. While they had breakfast, they were surprised by the inn owner, who entered the dining room breathlessly. "Joe, Mrs. Margaret, you're famous. You're all over social media. Even the morning news talked about you." The couple looked at each other, confused. The owner showed her tablet where a news portal report displayed a photo of Joe Thompson beside his donkey in front of the jewelry store. The headline read, "Farmer Donkey and Luxury Jewelry, the love story that moved America." "This is crazy," murmured Margaret, reading the article incredulously. "Joe, what did you do?" "I just bought a gift for my wife," he replied simply. "I don't know why all this fuss." At that moment, Joe Thompson's cell phone, a simple device he maintained mainly for communication with cooperative associates, began ringing incessantly. They were journalists, TV shows, local radio stations, and even brands interested in associating their image with their advertising campaigns. Meanwhile, at the jewelry store, Claire was making a decision that would change the direction of her business. After giving a brief interview to local TV, where she admitted her precipitous judgment and spoke about the emotion of being part of that love story, she gathered her employees for an announcement. "Starting today, Ocean Pearls will have a new philosophy," she declared with determination. "We're going to create a program called Gems of the Earth, with special conditions for rural producers in the region. I want our store to be a space where all people, regardless of their appearance, feel welcome." The initiative, shared on the jewelry store's social networks, generated a wave of approval. What began as a potentially embarrassing incident was transforming into a positive turnaround for the store's image. Claire, an experienced businesswoman, knew how to transform a mistake into an opportunity. That same afternoon, something unexpected happened. Margaret, wearing a simple cotton print dress and the magnificent sapphire necklace, appeared at the jewelry store accompanied by Joe Thompson. The store, which was full of curious customers attracted by the viral story, fell silent for a moment. Then, spontaneously, people began to applaud. "We came to say thank you," said Joe, visibly uncomfortable with all that attention, "and also to bring a gift." He handed Claire a small, hand-carved wooden box. Inside, there was a sample of the finest organic coffee beans produced by his cooperative, accompanied by a handwritten card. "So you can taste the flavor of honest work from the countryside." The simple gesture moved Claire, who couldn't hold back her tears. In front of the cameras that were already crowding the store entrance, she hugged Margaret and apologized for any initial misunderstanding. The moment, also recorded and shared, generated even more repercussion. It was in this scenario that the proposal no one expected emerged. Beth Summers, the influencer who had documented the beginning of that story, appeared with a formal proposal. A national jewelry brand wanted to invite the couple and the jewelry store to star in a national campaign about true wealth. The fee would be substantial. "We don't want money," Margaret responded promptly. "If there's any payment, we ask that it be donated to the Hartford Cancer Hospital, where I was treated through Medicaid." The declaration provoked even more commotion. Within hours, brand representatives confirmed that not only would they make the requested donation, but they would double the amount. Additionally, they would invite Joe Thompson and Margaret to be ambassadors of a new social project aimed at low-income cancer patients. The surprises continued in the following days. The story of the farmer with his donkey and the expensive jewelry for his cancer-surviving wife became the cover story of a national weekly magazine. The Donkey Lightning gained so many fans that the jewelry brand decided to include him in the campaign, creating a special line called Lightning, with part of the profits destined for the preservation of working animals in the countryside. While Joe and Margaret's life was transformed by unexpected exposure, they remained true to their roots. They refused invitations to TV shows they considered sensationalist and insisted on giving interviews only if they could talk about the importance of family farming and accessible cancer treatment. Inspired by all that movement, Margaret had an idea that would change even more lives. Using her new visibility, she founded the Country Flower Institute, dedicated to offering emotional and psychological support for women undergoing cancer treatment in rural areas. When we're sick far from big cities, loneliness and fear are even greater, she explained in her first interview as president of the institute. 6 months after that unusual morning in the Hamptons, Ocean Pearl's jewelry store inaugurated its first branch, not in another tourist city, but in Hartford, near Joe Thompson's cooperative. At the entrance of the new store, a life-size bronze sculpture of a donkey with a plaque that read, "Lightning taught us, never judge by appearance." The inauguration ceremony brought together local authorities, rural producers, patients benefited by the Country Flower Institute, and of course Joe Thompson and Margaret, who arrived as always, in their cart pulled by Lightning, now the most famous donkey in America. The story of Joe Thompson, Margaret, and the donkey Lightning didn't end with the inauguration of the jewelry store branch in Hartford. In fact, that was just the beginning of a much larger transformation that crossed borders and touched thousands of hearts. 1 year after the episode on Main Street, Ocean Pearls had already expanded its Gems of the Earth program to 5 American states, creating partnerships with family farmer cooperatives and local artisans. Claire, now with a new vision about her business, became a speaker at events about inclusive entrepreneurship, always beginning her presentations with the story of the farmer and his donkey. The Country Flower Institute, founded by Margaret, already served more than 200 women undergoing cancer treatment in rural areas across America. With the support of volunteers and donations that kept arriving, it expanded its services to include free transportation for medical appointments and treatments, in addition to offering lodging for patients who needed to travel to major centers. Joe Thompson, faithful to his simple nature, continued waking up with the sunrise to tend to his crops. However, Green Valley Organic Cooperative multiplied its revenue, allowing better working conditions and income for hundreds of families. The coffee produced by them began to be exported with the Lightning seal, becoming a symbol of quality and social responsibility. And what about Lightning himself? The donkey, who was once considered inappropriate for the sophisticated Main Street of the Hamptons, now had his image on t-shirts, mugs, and even an exclusive line of jewelry. His bronze representation at the entrance of the Buzios jewelry store became a mandatory tourist spot, where visitors took photos and left coins for luck, amounts that were later donated to the Institute. The social networks that had propelled the story continued following the couple. When Margaret completed 3 years cancer-free, the hashtag #TonerMargaret1 was among the most talked about topics on Twitter for an entire day. Celebrities, politicians, and common people shared their own stories of overcoming, creating a chain of solidarity that spread throughout the country. In an interview for a major circulation magazine, Joe Thompson was asked if he ever regretted the repercussion caused by his visit to the jewelry store that July morning. "I never imagined that a cart and a donkey could take so many people so far," he replied with his characteristic simplicity. "But if this helped other people see their neighbors with more respect, then every penny of those jewels was worth it." Margaret, beside him in the interview, added, "The real jewel wasn't in the boxes he gave me that day. The real jewel is knowing that our story helped change so many people's lives." While the report was being finalized outside, tied to a decorative post, Lightning calmly observed the movement, as if he knew that sometimes it takes a donkey entering a jewelry store for people to realize the value of what really matters. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Joe Thompson, Margaret, and the donkey Lightning has warmed your hearts and reminded everyone that appearances never reveal the true wealth of a person. To follow this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories of ordinary people who accomplished extraordinary feats. Find it here, clicking on the link to the left. If you were moved by this narrative, of love, overcoming, and transformation, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore life's complexities and remind us of what really matters. As Joe Thompson taught us, promises are sacred, and we promise to always bring content that touches the soul and inspires change. Share your own stories of mistaken judgments and lessons learned in the comments. Who knows, the next story we tell might not be yours.